Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. You're tuned in to Wow Podcast. By all means, go to wowpodcast.me. That's wowpodcast.me. Now, today we have a special guest. We have Jennifer Landels. She's here to talk to us about her latest book, Allaigna, song, the Trilogy. Jennifer, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So, I was reading through your bio, and I'm very curious. You have a degree in medieval literature. Why is that?
Oh, well, I started out taking biology at university, and then about halfway through third year, started taking a Anglo-Saxon course for an arts credit. Found out I was really good at it. Found out I was really good at English in general, so I switched courses midstream, and then I finished my degree in my undergrad degree at UBC. Started a postdoc or a postgrad degree at University of London, and then I switched courses midstream again and joined a rock band.
So, in doing that, what was the notion to come up with this particular book?
The book actually came a lot later. The character sort of appeared fully formed in my head as an adult, and I wrote the book to give her a backstory, essentially.
So, what is Allaigna's song about?
It's three stories in one. So it's a story of Allaigna, who, as a young girl, discovers that she can sing music into magic. It's a dangerous talent. She finds out about it when she accidentally makes her baby brother fall asleep and fall down the hayloft trapdoor. And it's also a dangerous talent because it's not quite legal in the country in which she lives. The book is also the story of her mother and her grandmother when they were younger women. So the three stories are braid together, and as you read, you find out the secrets and the mysteries that are wrapped around Allaigna's heritage and her birth.
Now, with this particular book, is it made for children or is this an adult read?
It's an adult read. I mean, young adults can certainly read it, but it's not intended for young adults.
And why is that? What's in the book that keeps it away from children?
Nothing keeps it away from children. It's just that it was written with an adult audience in mind. So I read it to my daughters when they were fairly young, and they enjoyed it. They got a lot out of it, and I think any teenager would enjoy it as well. But the parts of the book that deal with the relationship between mother, daughter, grandmother are a little bit more introspective and a little bit more adult in flavor. It's not racy or anything like that. So it's certainly safe for children to read. They just might not feel it as deeply as sort of more mature audience would.
Right, because I was reading through some of the reviews, and the reviews are great, and I was trying to find out, okay, how did Jennifer pull from this experience? So what got you inspired to write this book?
Well, I mean, my own children inspired me. Part of writing is therapeutic, so writing about family relationships. My background, I was a musician back in London, so music has always been important to me, and the concept of being able to turn the harmonic vibration of music into magic is quite fascinating. So that was where that idea came from. And other aspects, I'm a sword fighter, I'm a rider, so I always have horses and swords and things like that in my books. And a midwife, I'm not a midwife, but my main character is, but I was a childbirth educator and doula. So, pregnancy and birth feature fairly heavily in the book in that sense.
So you're a combat rider. I'm curious, because I was trying to see, I saw the picture, I saw the sword, and you just mentioned that you know how to fight with the sword. When did that start?
Well, when I was young, my best friend and I always used to, try and hit each other with riding whips and sticks and anything like that. So I've always been interested in sword play. I did a little bit of sport fencing in university, but not much. And then I was actually researching for a different novel, one which I didn't get around to writing much later, but I was researching 17th century rapiers, and then I found out there was a school right here in Vancouver, Canada, where I could learn to do that for real. So I started that in 2007, and that quickly became an obsession, and I became a teacher, and then I started the mounted combat program because I had horses, Academy Duello had swords. Let's put the two together. So in 2010, so it's the 10-year anniversary this year, we started the mounted combat program to teach people how to ride, how to look after horses, and how to sword fight from horseback.
So how many horses do you have?
At the moment, I have about 10 of my own, and in addition to running the program, I run a boarding stable, so we look after about 18 horses altogether here.
Gotcha. And what type of horses are they? Because I've seen competitions, and to me being very, ignorant to the fact, all the horses look the same to me except for stallions. So what type of horses do you have?
We have all sorts of breeds of horses. The two that I use for mounted combat, one is an off-the-track thoroughbred, so she used to be a racehorse. The other one's a Canadian horse, which is called the Cheval Canadien, and they're very similar in build and temperament, we think. Definitely visually similar to the horses that are in the 14th century Italian manuscripts that I work from. So that horse, makes a good mounted combat steed. We have a couple of other of those as well. But any horse can be used for mounted combat. We have giant draft horse crosses, and we have horses as small, that only come up to your armpit. So, all sorts of breeds.
So, what's next for Jennifer?
Well, I am writing, I'm finishing up the sequel, the third book in the trilogy. That should be ready for publication next year. I am working on another novella series. This one is a historical fiction. It's set in 17th century France, and it features a shepherdess turned spy. The series itself is called The Shepherdess. And on the mounted combat front, I've just opened my own school, Academy Cavallo, and I'm involved in another project called the University of the Sword, and myself and 5 other instructors from around the continent are giving free swordplay workshops every Saturday at noon Pacific. So if your listeners Google universityofthesword.com, you can sign up and learn swordplay for free.
Jennifer, you seem very busy. At what time of day do you find the time to at least jot down your ideas to come up with your next book?
I do my writing. I really only get first draft happening once a week, so I usually do that with my co-editors at Pulp Literature. We sit down and we write together for about an hour, and that is enough to keep me going. I get about 1,000 words out a week that way, and it's not super fast, but it's enough to keep the new material flowing.
So I'm looking at your book cover, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is I wonder if this writer is a hopeless romantic. Are you a hopeless romantic? I'm
very unromantic, actually.
Really?
Really. I'm not. I'm not a. I even though I do swordplay, and my photos are ones that were taken when I was asked to sort of dress up in slightly Renaissance type material, but I just like that photo, so I keep it. But I'm not really into putting on the full medieval garments or anything like that. I'm very modern in that sense, and I guess I know too much about the past to be romantic about it.
So what is it about the past that makes you unromantic about it in today's time?
Well, it was a terrible time to be a woman. It was, it was not really good living conditions for most people. Unless you were nobility, your life pretty much sucked in the past. As bad as some things are today, and that we still have a lot of work to do in bringing everyone's standard of living up globally, we still are in a much better place than we were even as 18th or 19th century peasants in most societies. So, it looks nice from the rosy-colored glasses of the present, and you think about how quaint it was, but it was probably a pretty horrible life.
So what do you expect the readers to pull from your trilogy?
Well, I hope they get some emotional connection to the relationships between mothers and daughters. I mean, that's the main thing. It is what the book is about for me, even though it's dressed up as a fantasy and there's lots of exciting action and romance and all those sorts of things. It really is a story about families and family connections, the ties they have with each other, the horrible things they do to each other, but the love that still exists there.
So where can readers go to follow you possibly on social media and definitely purchase your book?
I am on Twitter at JM and if you Google JM Landels, that's JMLANDELS, you'll find my Facebook, you'll find me on Amazon as well. And you can buy my books there. And you can also find me at pulpliterature.com, which is the publishing house.
Well, I'm your host, Darshan McAway. We're talking to author Jennifer Landels. We're talking to her about her latest book, Allaigna's song, Heir. Jennifer, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Darshan.